He didn't even look at the babies. Not once. After 14 hours of labor, after nearly dying to bring his triplets into this world, Maya watched her husband Marcus Webb walk into that recovery room. He didn't hold her hand. He didn't ask if she was okay. He pulled a manila envelope from his designer suit and dropped it directly onto her trembling, still bleeding body. "Sign it. My driver's waiting downstairs." But Marcus Webb made one fatal mistake that morning. He didn't check the mail. He didn't know the worthless woman he was throwing away had just inherited everything, including the bank that owned his soul. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The manila envelope hit Maya's legs with a thud that echoed through her bones. She stared at it, her mind struggling to process what was happening. The epidural was wearing off. Her body felt like it had been split in half and poorly sewn back together. 3 babies. Her 3 babies were somewhere down the hall in the NICU, fighting their first battles in a world they'd only entered 2 hours ago. And her husband was standing at the foot of her hospital bed, checking his Rolex. "Marcus." Her voice came out as a rasp. "What is this? Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Maya." Marcus Webb's voice was smooth, controlled, the same boardroom tone he used when firing employees. "Open it. Sign it. I have somewhere to be." Maya's fingers trembled as she touched the envelope. It felt heavy. Wrong. Everything about this moment felt wrong. "I just gave birth," she whispered. "To your children. Our children. They're in the NICU, Marcus." The doctor said Elijah's lungs. "I heard." "Then why aren't you down there? Why aren't you with them?" Marcus finally looked at her. Really looked at her. And Maya saw something in his eyes that made her blood turn to ice. It wasn't worry. It wasn't love. It wasn't even indifference. It was contempt. "Open the envelope, Maya." Her hands shook as she pulled out the stack of papers inside. The words blurred together at first. Her vision was still hazy from exhaustion and medication, but certain phrases jumped out at her like punches to the gut. Dissolution of marriage. Irreconcilable differences. Petitioner, Marcus Dwayne Webb. Divorce papers. The word came out broken. You're divorcing me. Now today." "The timing is unfortunate." Marcus adjusted his cufflinks. "But my lawyers insisted we move quickly. Something about asset protection before certain developments could complicate things." "What developments, Marcus? I don't understand." "We were fine. Last week we were picking out paint colors for the nursery. You said you wanted the boys' room to be blue, and I said what you needed to hear." Maya felt the room spin. She gripped the bed rails, trying to anchor herself to something solid, something real. "What does that mean?" Marcus sighed the way he sighed when explaining something simple to someone he considered stupid. "Let me make this clear since you seem to be struggling. You were a solution to a problem, Maya. Nothing more. When I needed to secure the Tanaka merger, I needed a wife. Someone presentable. Someone quiet. Someone who wouldn't embarrass me in front of conservative Japanese investors who value family men. A solution. The Asian markets don't trust single men in their 40s. They think we're unstable, unreliable. So I found you a sweet little museum archivist with no family money, no connections, no complications. You were perfect. You smiled when I needed you to smile. You stayed silent when I needed you to stay silent. You got pregnant when I needed to show I was building a family." Maya felt tears streaming down her face, but she couldn't feel them. She couldn't feel anything except a growing numbness spreading through her chest. "You're saying our entire marriage was a business arrangement that you were too naive to recognize?" "Yes." Marcus pulled out his phone, checking something on the screen. "The Tanaka merger closed 6 weeks ago. My stock is up 43%. You've served your purpose. Now I need someone who can actually help me reach the next level." "The next level?" As if on cue, the door swung open. The click of high heels on linoleum cut through the sterile silence like gunshots. Maya knew those heels. She'd seen them in magazines, $4,000. Christian Louboutins, the red soles like warnings of blood to come. Vivian Cole walked into the recovery room like she owned it. She probably could, Maya thought numbly. Vivian's father owned half the telecommunications infrastructure on the East Coast. Vivian herself had graced the covers of Forbes, Vogue, and Town and Country often in the same month. She was everything Maya was not. Tall, polished, dripping in diamonds that caught the harsh hospital lighting and threw rainbows across the walls. Is she signing? Vivian didn't look at Maya. She looked at Marcus, one perfectly manicured hand sliding up his arm possessively. She's being difficult. Of course she is. Vivian finally glanced at Maya, and her smile was the cruelest thing Maya had ever seen. They always are. The desperate ones cling the hardest. Vivian. Maya's voice cracked. How long what, sweetheart? How long have you been sleeping with my husband? Vivian laughed a bright tinkling sound that belonged at cocktail parties, not hospital rooms. Oh, honey, I was sleeping with Marcus before you were pregnant. Why do you think he was so eager to put a baby in you? We needed the heirs. The optics. His board loves a family man. She patted her flat stomach. I wasn't about to ruin this body for something so temporary. Maya looked at Marcus. Is this true? Does it matter? He was getting impatient now. She could see it in the tension of his jaw, the way his fingers drummed against his thigh. Sign the papers, Maya. The terms are generous, more generous than you deserve. Generous. You get the apartment in Queens. The one my company owns, don't look so surprised. Of course, I'm not giving you actual real estate. You get a monthly stipend of $5,000 for 2 years. After that, you figure out your own life. And the children. I'll take custody once they're old enough for boarding school. Until then, you can raise them. Consider it your job, unpaid, of course. Room and board should be sufficient compensation for someone of your skill set. Maya's hands clenched around the papers so hard they crumpled. You want me to be their nanny? To my own children. Our nanny situation will be handled by professionals. You'll be more of a biological placeholder. Present when needed for photos, absent when not. I won't sign this. The words came out stronger than Maya expected. Stronger than she felt. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He leaned forward, placing both hands on the bed rails, his face inches from hers. Let me explain something to you, Maya. You have $47 in your bank account. I know because I monitor it. You have no family. Your mother died when you were 12. Your father drank himself to death before you finished high school. You have no friends who matter, no connections, who count, and no skills that anyone would pay for. I have a degree in art history. Marcus laughed. Worth less than the paper it's printed on. You were making $32,000 a year when I found you, Maya. $32,000. I spend more than that on watches. That doesn't mean... I have 17 lawyers on retainer. 17. The best in New York. They've already prepared documentation showing patterns of mental instability, postpartum psychosis indicators, and financial incompetence. If you fight me on this, I will have you declared unfit. I will take those babies, not because I want them, but because I can. And I will make sure you never see them again. Maya felt something crack inside her. The last fragment of hope she'd been clinging to, the belief that this was a nightmare, that the man she'd loved for 3 years couldn't possibly be this monster, shattered into dust. Please. She hated the begging in her voice. Marcus, please. I love you. I've always loved you. Whatever I did wrong, I can fix it. We can go to counseling. We can... love. Marcus straightened up, smoothing his suit jacket. You love me. That's the problem, Maya. You love me. You need me. That makes you weak. And I don't have room in my life for weakness anymore. He pulled a pen from his pocket, a Mont Blanc that Maya had given him for their first anniversary. She'd saved for 3 months to buy it. Sign. No. Sign or I make one phone call, and those babies in the NICU become wards of the state while we battle this out in court. How long do you think premature triplets survive in the foster system, Maya? How long before something tragic happens to one of them? You wouldn't. Try me. Vivian laughed again, checking her reflection in her phone screen. Just sign it, girl. This is embarrassing. We have a gala to attend. The Post is going to announce our engagement tonight, and I am not missing my moment because some nobody can't accept reality. Maya looked at the pen in Marcus's hand. She looked at the divorce papers, the document that would end everything she thought her life was. She looked at the door, praying someone would walk in. A nurse. A doctor. Anyone who would see what was happening and stop it. But no one came. The hospital wing was quiet. Marcus had probably made sure of that. He owned this wing after all. His name was on the donor plaque in the lobby. The children, Maya whispered. Promise me you won't hurt them. They're useful, Marcus said. Heirs have value. They'll be fine as long as you cooperate. With trembling fingers, Maya took the pen. She signed her name on line after line, watching the ink dry on each page, like blood from a wound that would never heal. When she was done, Marcus snatched the papers back immediately, checking each signature with the efficiency of a man closing a merger. Good. He tucked the envelope inside his jacket. The car will pick you up when you're discharged. Don't go back to the penthouse. Your things have already been moved to storage. You can sort through them at your leisure. He turned to leave. Marcus? Maya's voice stopped him at the door. Did you ever love me even for a moment? He didn't turn around. I loved what you could do for me. That's all any of us ever love, Maya. The sooner you accept that, the easier your life will be. Vivian linked her arm through his, throwing one last look over her shoulder. Enjoy, Queen Sweetheart. I hear the pizza's decent. The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded like a coffin lid. Maya stared at the ceiling. She couldn't cry anymore. She couldn't feel anymore. Everything inside her had gone numb, hollow, dead. She had nothing. No husband, no money, no home. 3 babies who would grow up knowing their father saw them as assets on a balance sheet. She was 26 years old, and her life was over. Or so she thought. 47 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Maya didn't move. She didn't speak. She'd been lying in the same position since Marcus left, staring at a water stain on the ceiling tiles, trying to calculate how she would buy diapers on $5,000 a month in New York City. Go away, she finally said. Visiting hours are over. The door opened anyway. But it wasn't a nurse. It wasn't Marcus coming back to twist the knife deeper. It wasn't Vivian with one more cruel joke. An elderly man stepped into the room. He was dressed in a way Maya had only seen in old movies. A 3-piece suit of charcoal tweed, complete with a pocket watch chain glinting against his vest. Wire-rimmed glasses perched on a kind face weathered by decades of living. He carried a leather briefcase that looked older than Maya herself, its brass clasps tarnished with age. Mrs. Webb. His voice was gentle, British accented formal. It's just Maya now. The bitterness in her own voice surprised her. If you're one of Marcus's lawyers here to add some clause I missed, leave it on the table. I'll sign whatever he wants. I don't care anymore. The old man smiled a genuine smile that reached his eyes. I assure you, my dear, I do not work for Mr. Webb. In fact, my firm has declined his business on several occasions. We found his ethical standards incompatible with our own. Maya frowned, forcing herself to sit up, despite the pain that shot through her abdomen. Then who are you? My name is Harold Whitmore. He set his briefcase on the bedside table, the same spot where the divorce papers had been thrown an hour ago. I am the executor of the estate of Theodore Ashford. I don't know anyone named Theodore Ashford. No. Harold clicked open the brass latches of his briefcase. You wouldn't. He was your great-uncle on your mother's side, estranged from the family for nearly 60 years. He was by all accounts an eccentric man. A recluse. He had very particular ideas about privacy and family and the corruption of wealth. Maya shook her head. My mother never mentioned any uncle. That was by design. Theodore left the family before your mother was born. There was a disagreement. Something about your grandmother's choice of husband. Theodore disapproved words were exchanged, and he vanished from the family history entirely. Okay. Maya's head was spinning. But why are you here? I have nothing. I literally just signed away whatever rights I might have had. I'm nobody. Harold pulled a document from his briefcase. It was thick, bound in blue velvet with gold leaf edges. It looked like something that belonged in a museum, not a hospital room. Theodore Ashford passed away 5 days ago in Geneva. He was 93 years old. He died peacefully in his sleep after a long and extraordinarily private life. I'm sorry to hear that. Maya meant it, though she had no emotional energy left to feel much of anything. But I still don't understand. Theodore was not merely a recluse, Maya. Harold's eyes began to twinkle behind his glasses. He was the silent founder of Ashford Maritime International. Maya blinked. Ashford Maritime, the shipping company. The shipping empire. Theodore owned the logistics routes that move 40% of the world's oil. He owned mineral rights in 6 countries, tech investments in Silicon Valley real estate across 4 continents. He lived simply because he believed wealth corrupted, but he built simply because he couldn't help himself. He was a businessman at heart, even when he pretended otherwise. That's impressive. Maya didn't know what else to say. But what does this have to do with me? Harold set the velvet-bound document in her lap. Theodore had no children, no wife, no heirs that he acknowledged until 2 weeks ago. He spent the last decade of his life watching his extended family from afar. He saw how your mother struggled as a single parent. He saw how you worked 2 jobs to put yourself through college. He saw how you built a life from nothing with no handouts, no shortcuts, no compromises. He watched me, discreetly, through investigators, through public records, through the occasional, creative surveillance. He saw the kind of person you were, Maya. Kind, hard-working, honest to a fault. Harold paused, his expression growing serious. He also saw you marry Marcus Webb. Maya felt her chest tighten. He must have been disappointed. On the contrary, he saw a good woman being deceived by a charming predator. He saw the same pattern that had destroyed his own sister, your grandmother, decades ago. And he decided that when the moment came when you finally saw Marcus Webb for what he truly was, you would need resources to survive. The moment came, Maya whispered, looking at the empty space where Marcus had stood. Indeed it did. Harold nodded toward the document in her lap. Theodore wrote this will 12 days ago. He was quite specific in his instructions. It was not to be revealed to you until, and I quote, the girl faces a moment of total ruin and sees her husband's true face. He knew this would happen. He suspected. Men like Marcus Webb are not subtle to those who know what to look for. Theodore saw the patterns. He prepared accordingly. Maya looked down at the velvet-bound document, afraid to open it. What's in here? Harold Whitmore smiled, a wide, genuine grin that transformed his formal demeanor into something almost mischievous. According to the terms of this will, as the sole living blood relative and designated beneficiary of Theodore Ashford, you are now the owner of assets totaling approximately $38 billion. The heart monitor beside Maya's bed began beeping faster. I'm sorry, did you say? 38 billion, give or take a few hundred million depending on today's market fluctuations. Maya couldn't breathe. The number didn't make sense. It didn't compute. It was a figure from headlines about tech billionaires and oil sheiks, not museum archivists from Queens. That's not possible. I assure you it is quite possible, and quite real. Harold reached into his briefcase again, producing a second document. You are also, as of this morning, the majority shareholder of Sterling Pacific Bank. Sterling Pacific. Maya recognized the name. That's Marcus's bank. His company banks there. His loans are all held by Sterling Pacific. Yes. The mortgage on his headquarters. The line of credit funding his Asian expansion. the personal loan securing his properties. Harold's eyes glittered. All of it is now technically speaking owed to you. Maya stared at the documents in her lap. Her hands were shaking so badly the papers rustled. "This morning," she said slowly, "my husband told me I was worthless. He said I had nothing. No money, no connections, no power." "Your husband was mistaken. He said he would destroy me, take my children, bury me in legal battles I couldn't afford. He will find that considerably more difficult now." Maya looked up at Harold Whitmore, this strange, formal, impossibly kind man who had walked into her worst moment carrying $40 billion in a leather briefcase. "Why?" she asked. "Why did Theodore do this? He didn't know me. I never met him. Why would he leave everything to a stranger?" Harold was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Theodore told me something near the end. He said that wealth without purpose is a prison. He had spent 60 years building an empire and had no one to share it with. No family, no legacy. Just numbers on a screen and properties he never visited." He placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "He saw in you something he had lost long ago, the capacity to love without calculation, to trust without agenda, to build a family for reasons that had nothing to do with mergers or acquisitions. He wanted to give that woman the power to protect herself, to protect her children, to never be at the mercy of men like Marcus Webb again." Maya felt tears streaming down her face, real tears this time, not the numb grief from before. "I don't know what to do with $38 billion. "You don't have to know today." Harold handed her a heavy fountain pen, far more elegant than the Mont Blanc Marcus had used. "Today you simply need to sign the acceptance documents. Tomorrow we begin building your new life." Maya took the pen. It felt solid in her hand, real, powerful. "Mr. Whitmore." "Yes." "Does Marcus know about any of this?" Harold's smile turned sharp. "Not yet. The inheritance was processed through Swiss channels specifically to avoid any premature disclosure. As far as Marcus Webb knows, you are still the penniless museum archivist he threw away this morning." Maya looked at the pen. She looked at the documents. She thought about Marcus and Vivian at their gala right now, champagne in hand, laughing about how easily they'd disposed of the burden named Maya. She thought about her 3 babies down the hall, Noah, Elijah, and Serena, who would grow up knowing their father had called them liabilities. Something shifted inside her. The numbness began to thaw, replaced by something hotter, something that had teeth. "Mr. Whitmore," Maya said, her voice stronger now, "you said I own the bank that holds Marcus's loans. That is correct. And I own his company's debt. The majority of it, yes." Maya signed her name on the acceptance document. The ink gleamed wet against the cream-colored paper. "Good," she said. "Then I think it's time my ex-husband learned an important lesson about underestimating people." Harold Whitmore's grin widened. "I was hoping you'd say that. Now, shall we discuss strategy?" "I believe there's a charity gala happening tonight that might benefit from some unexpected news." Maya looked at her reflection in the darkened window. She was pale, exhausted, still wearing a hospital gown stained with the evidence of childbirth. She didn't look like a billionaire. She didn't look like anyone who could challenge Marcus Webb. But looks, as she was learning, could be deceiving. "Tell me everything," Maya said, "and then tell me how to destroy him." 3 months changed everything. Maya stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling mirror in her private suite at the Ashford estate, studying the woman staring back at her. She barely recognized herself. The exhausted, broken creature who had signed divorce papers in a hospital bed seemed like a stranger, now someone from another lifetime, another world. Her hair was different. Gone was the simple ponytail she'd worn for years. Now it fell in sleek, sophisticated waves that framed her face with intention. Her skin glowed from treatments she'd never known existed. Her posture had changed: shoulders, back, chin, lifted, spine straight. But the biggest transformation was in her eyes. The softness was still there, buried deep, but something harder had grown over it. something cold and patient and relentless. "The children are down for their nap," the nanny announced from the doorway. Noah was fussy, but he settled after his bottle. "And Serena, sleeping like an angel. Elijah too." Maya nodded, her gaze never leaving her reflection. "Thank you, Margaret. That will be all." The door closed softly. Maya touched the sapphire pendant at her throat, a piece from Theodore's collection that was worth more than Marcus's entire penthouse. She had worn nothing but hospital gowns and borrowed sweats for the first week after the divorce. Now she had a closet the size of her old apartment filled with clothes that cost more than her annual salary at the museum. Money changed things. Money changed everything. But it wasn't the clothes or the jewelry or the estate that made Maya feel powerful. It was knowledge. For 3 months, she had done nothing but learn about Marcus's business, his weaknesses, his secrets, his lies, and she had learned plenty. Harold Whitmore knocked twice before entering. "The intelligence report you requested." Maya turned, accepting the thick manila folder. "Tell me." "Marcus Webb believes he is untouchable." Harold settled into an armchair, crossing his legs precisely. "He has been celebrating aggressively since the divorce. Parties every weekend, expensive trips, public appearances with Miss Cole designed to establish their relationship as the new power couple of Manhattan. He's spending money he doesn't have." "Precisely. His Asian expansion was more expensive than projected. He leveraged everything, his shares, his properties, his future earnings to fund it. The Tanaka merger provided short-term liquidity, but his debt-to-equity ratio is catastrophic." Maya flipped through the folder, scanning financial documents and surveillance photos. Marcus at a yacht party. Marcus at a charity event. Marcus and Vivian on the cover of Manhattan magazine with the headline, "New York's Most Eligible Couple." "He told the press I had a mental breakdown," Maya said quietly, "that I abandoned my children and fled the city." "Yes, the narrative has been carefully constructed. You are portrayed as an unstable gold digger who couldn't handle the pressure of being a CEO's wife. And people believe it. People believe what they are told by confident, wealthy men in expensive suits." Harold's voice carried a trace of bitterness. "It has always been so." Maya closed the folder. "What about Sterling Pacific? Have we begun?" "We have, quietly. I've installed 3 of our people on the loan review committee. They've been flagging irregularities in Webb Capital's accounts, nothing aggressive, yet just building a paper trail. When we're ready to move, every I will be dotted, every T crossed." "And his board?" "More complicated. Marcus controls his board through a combination of loyalty and leverage. Most of them owe him personally. He funded their businesses, introduced them to investors, buried their scandals. They won't turn on him easily." "They'll turn when they realize the ship is sinking." "Indeed they will. Rats always do." Maya walked to the window, looking out at the manicured grounds that stretched toward the distant ocean. 3 months ago, she had been trying to calculate how to afford formula and diapers. Now she owned enough real estate to build a small city. The irony wasn't lost on her. "There's something else," Harold said carefully. "Something you should know before we proceed." "Tell me." "Marcus has been asking questions. About you. About where you disappeared to. His lawyers have been trying to trace your location." "Let them try." "Maya." Harold's voice was gentle but firm. "He's not just curious. He's angry. You were supposed to disappear quietly into Queens and never be heard from again. Instead, you vanished completely. No forwarding address. No social media presence. No contact with anyone from your old life. That kind of disappearance requires resources. Resources you weren't supposed to have. He suspects something. He suspects he missed something. He's had investigators looking into your background, your family history, your financial records, any possible connections he might have overlooked. Have they found anything?" "Not yet." Theodore was thorough in covering his tracks. The Swiss accounts, the shell companies, the layers of legal protection, it would take years to untangle even for the best investigators. But Marcus is persistent. And paranoid. Maya turned back to face Harold. Good. Let him be paranoid. Let him feel that something is wrong, that the ground is shifting beneath his feet. I want him looking over his shoulder. I want him losing sleep. Revenge is a double-edged sword, my dear. This isn't revenge, Harold. This is justice. There's a difference. Is there? The question hung in the air between them. Maya didn't answer. The charity gala is next week, Harold said, changing the subject. The annual Web Capital benefit at the Plaza. It's the most important event on Marcus's calendar. Every major investor, every board member, every potential partner will be there. He's planning to announce the Italian merger with Moretti International. I know. You're planning to attend. I'm planning to make an entrance. Harold studied her for a long moment. And what exactly do you intend to do at this gala? Maya smiled, a cold, precise expression that didn't reach her eyes. I intend to introduce myself. Properly. The week passed in a blur of preparation. Maya met with stylists, with lawyers, with financial advisors, with security consultants. She rehearsed what she would say, how she would move, how she would look at Marcus when he finally realized who she had become. She also spent hours with her children. Whatever else she was planning. Whatever darkness was growing in her heart, Noah, Elijah, and Serena remained her light. She fed them, bathed them, sang to them in the quiet hours of the night. She memorized their faces, their sounds, their tiny fingers gripping hers with fierce, instinctive trust. I'm doing this for you, she whispered to them one night standing over their cribs in the moonlit nursery. I'm doing this so you never have to feel small, so no one ever makes you feel worthless, so you grow up knowing that your mother fought for you. The baby slept on, oblivious to her promises. 2 days before the gala, Harold arrived with unexpected news. Vivian Cole came to see me this morning. Maya looked up from the documents she was reviewing. Excuse me. She appeared at my office unannounced. My secretary tried to turn her away, but she was insistent. What did she want? To talk, to make a deal. Harold set his briefcase down with more force than usual. She knows Maya. She doesn't know everything, but she knows something is happening. She's been watching Marcus more carefully than he realizes, and she's seen the warning signs. What warning signs? The nervousness, the late-night phone calls, the sudden obsession with locating you. She said, and I quote, Marcus doesn't panic unless there's something worth panicking about, and he's been panicking for weeks. Maya leaned back in her chair. So Vivian Cole suspects her golden ticket might be losing its shine. Something like that. She offered information in exchange for protection. Protection from what? From the fallout. She's not stupid, Maya. She knows that if Marcus goes down, she goes down with him. The Cole family has their own reputation to protect, and being associated with a disgraced financier is not part of their brand strategy. What kind of information? Harold opened his briefcase and removed a small USB drive. Everything. Texts, emails, recorded conversations. 3 years of Marcus Webb's unguarded moments preserved by a woman who never trusted him enough to delete the evidence. Maya stared at the drive. She recorded him obsessively. Vivian Cole may be many things, but she is not naive. She knew from the beginning that Marcus was using her just as he used you. The difference is that she was using him too. She just wanted to make sure she had leverage if things went wrong. And now, she's handing that leverage to me, in exchange for a guarantee that her family's name stays out of whatever happens next. She wants to walk away clean. Maya picked up the drive, turning it over in her fingers. Such a small thing to contain so much destruction. What's on here, Harold, specifically? I haven't reviewed it in detail, but she mentioned several items that might interest you. Conversations about the triplets, what he really thought of them, what he planned to do with them. Discussions about you, how the divorce was planned months before you gave birth, how the timing was calculated to maximize your vulnerability. Maya's jaw tightened. And there's more. Business dealings that cross legal lines. Tax evasion, fraud, bribes to government officials. Marcus Webb has been careless in his private moments, confident that Vivian was too in love with him to ever betray his trust. He underestimated her. He underestimates everyone. It's his fatal flaw. Maya plugged the drive into her laptop. The files populated slowly, hundreds of them, organized by date and category. She clicked on one at random. Marcus's voice filled the room, tinny through the laptop speakers, but unmistakably his. The triplets are a necessary evil. Once they're old enough to photograph well, they'll be useful for the family man image. Until then, they're just expensive noise machines. I told my lawyer to build the custody claim around financial responsibility. I'll look like the dedicated father fighting for his children while Maya falls apart. Sympathetic, right? Then once I have leverage, I negotiate. 5 billion, maybe 10. She'll pay anything to keep them. Maya stopped the recording. Her hands were shaking. He was planning to use them, she said quietly. Use my babies as bargaining chips. Yes. Even though he never wanted them. Even though he called them liabilities. Marcus Webb wants many things he doesn't value. It's how men like him operate. Maya closed the laptop. When she looked up, her eyes were dry, but something had changed in them. The last trace of softness, the final remnant of the woman who had loved Marcus Webb, had been extinguished. Harold. Yes. I want to destroy him, not just embarrass him, not just take his company. I want to dismantle everything he is piece by piece until there's nothing left. Harold nodded slowly. I know. Can you help me do that? I can. The question is whether you'll be able to live with yourself afterward. Maya stood walking to the window where the afternoon sun was beginning to sink toward the horizon. He threw divorce papers on my body while I was still bleeding from giving birth to his children. He called me a placeholder. He called my babies liabilities. He planned to use them as leverage to extort money from me. She turned to face Harold. I can live with whatever comes next. The night before the gala, Maya couldn't sleep. She walked through the silent halls of the Ashford estate, past priceless paintings and antique furniture, past rooms she hadn't even explored yet. The house was enormous, 43 rooms. Harold had told her not counting the servant quarters or the guest houses, and she still felt like a visitor in it. She found herself in the library, drawn by some instinct she couldn't name. The walls were lined with books, thousands of them, collected over decades by a man she had never met, but who had somehow seen her more clearly than anyone else in her life. A photograph sat on the mantel above the fireplace. Theodore Ashford, young and handsome, in a black and white image from the 1960s, standing next to a woman who looked remarkably like Maya's mother. That was your grandmother, Harold had told her once, before the falling out. Theodore loved her deeply, but she chose your grandfather instead, a charming man with a drinking problem and no prospects. Theodore tried to warn her. She didn't listen. Maya studied the photograph, now searching for something in Theodore's eyes. He looked happy in this picture, unaware of the disappointment and isolation that awaited him. Thank you, she whispered to the image. I don't know why you chose me, but I won't waste this chance. The photograph didn't answer. Maya pulled a book from the shelf at random, a worn copy of The Count of Monte Cristo. She smiled despite herself. Theodore had clearly had a taste for revenge narratives. She was about to return it to the shelf when a piece of paper slipped out from between the pages. A handwritten note. The ink faded but still legible. Maya, it read. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you've found your way to this library. I hope the journey here wasn't too painful, but I suspect it was. The journey to power always is. I want you to know that I thought about introducing myself many times over the years. I watched you grow up, watched you struggle, watched you fall in love with the wrong man. I could have intervened at any point. I chose not to. Not because I didn't care, but because I needed to see who you would become without help. I needed to know if you had the strength to survive what was coming. You did. You survived. And now you have the power to do more than survive. Use it wisely, my dear. Revenge is a fire that can warm you or consume you. The choice is yours, with love and hope. Theodore Maya read the note 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and slipped it into her pocket. "I'll try," she said softly. "I'll try to make you proud." The morning of the gala arrived gray and cold. Maya spent hours preparing, not because she needed to, but because she wanted every detail perfect. This was her debut, her resurrection. The world thought she was broken, hiding, destroyed. Tonight they would learn the truth. The dress was custom-made midnight blue velvet that clung to her curves and flowed behind her like liquid night. The sapphire necklace at her throat was worth more than Marcus's company would be by the end of the evening. The diamond tiara woven through her hair was subtle but unmistakable, a crown for a queen who had clawed her way up from nothing. "You look beautiful," Margaret said, helping with the final adjustments. "Like a movie star." "I don't feel beautiful," Maya admitted. "I feel terrified." "That's normal. You're about to do something terrifying." "What if I can't go through with it? What if I see him and I freeze?" Margaret, who was more than a nanny. Maya had learned, but a former intelligence officer recruited by Harold, specifically for this assignment, looked at her with steady eyes. "Then you remember what he did. You remember the hospital room. You remember the papers on your legs. You remember him calling your children liabilities. And you remember that you are not the woman he left behind. You are something else now, something he has never faced before." Maya nodded, drawing a deep breath. "You're right. I'm ready." "Of course you are. Now go show that man what he threw away." The limousine pulled up to the Plaza Hotel just after 8 o'clock. Maya watched through the tinted windows as New York's elite filed up the red carpet, pausing for photographs and interviews. She saw faces she recognized from magazines and newspapers, titans of industry celebrities, politicians, the beautiful and powerful people who ran the world. And there at the center of it all stood Marcus Webb. He was wearing a tuxedo that probably cost $10,000, his arm around Vivian Cole's waist. He was smiling that perfect practiced smile that had once made Maya's heart flutter. Now it made her stomach turn. "Are you ready?" Harold asked from the seat beside her. "No," Maya said. "But I'm going anyway." The driver opened the door. Maya stepped out into the flash of cameras and the world changed forever. She didn't hurry. She didn't pose. She simply walked slowly, deliberately, like a woman who knew exactly where she was going and didn't care who watched her get there. The crowd began to notice. Conversations faltered. Heads turned. The photographers, initially confused by this unknown woman in the stunning dress, began snapping pictures anyway because she moved like someone worth photographing. Maya climbed the grand staircase to the entrance of the ballroom. The doors were open, revealing the glittering crowd within. And at the far end of the room, standing beneath a banner that read, "Webb Capitol Building Tomorrow Together," Marcus Webb finally saw her. Their eyes met across 200 feet of marble floor and 500 of Manhattan's most important people. Maya watched the color drain from his face. She smiled not warmly, not kindly, but with the precise coldness of a blade sliding from its sheath. Then she began to walk toward him. And Marcus Webb, for the first time in his life, understood what it felt like to be prey. The crowd parted for Maya like water around a stone. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. Each step was measured deliberate, the click of her heels against the marble floor, cutting through the ambient music and chatter like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. Marcus stood frozen, his champagne glass suspended halfway to his lips. Vivian was saying something to him, tugging at his arm, but he didn't respond. His eyes were locked on Maya, his brain struggling to reconcile the woman walking toward him with the broken creature he had left in that hospital bed 3 months ago. "Marcus!" Vivian's voice was sharp with irritation. "Marcus, who is that? Why are you staring?" He didn't answer. Maya stopped 10 feet away from them, close enough to see the sweat beginning to bead on Marcus's forehead, close enough to smell Vivian's expensive perfume and the fear beneath it. Hello, Marcus. Her voice carried clearly in the sudden hush that had fallen over the nearby guests. Lovely party. A bit overdone with the gold leaf, but I suppose that's your style. Maya. The word came out strangled. How did you get in? Maya tilted her head, the diamonds in her tiara catching the light. I walked through the front door. Amazing what happens when you don't use the service entrance. Vivian's grip on Marcus's arm tightened. Security. Someone call security. This woman is trespassing. Am I? Maya turned her gaze to Vivian, and something in her expression made the other woman take an involuntary step back. I don't think the owner of the building would appreciate you throwing out invited guests. Owner of the... Marcus shook his head. You don't own anything. You have nothing. I had nothing. Maya smiled. Past tense. Things change, Marcus. Surely a businessman of your caliber understands market fluctuations. The crowd was gathering now, drawn by the tension crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. Maya could see phones being raised recording. Good. She wanted witnesses. I don't know what game you're playing, Marcus said, recovering some of his composure. He straightened his jacket, lifted his chin. But this is a private event. You weren't invited. Whatever breakdown you're having, I suggest you have it somewhere else before I have you removed. Breakdown? Maya laughed, a genuine sound that surprised even her. Is that still the story? The crazy ex-wife who couldn't handle the pressure, the unstable gold digger who abandoned her children. If the shoe fits. It doesn't. Maya took a step closer. But I understand why you needed that narrative. It's much more comfortable than the truth, isn't it? Easier to explain to your investors you're bored, your new fiancé. The truth is that you're delusional. Marcus's voice was rising, drawing more attention. You're a nobody, Maya. A museum worker I took pity on. I gave you 3 years of luxury you never could have afforded on your own, and this is how you repay me. By crashing my event and embarrassing yourself. Embarrassing myself. Maya nodded slowly. Yes, I can see how you might think that. But here's the thing. Marcus, I didn't come here to embarrass myself. She turned slightly, addressing the growing crowd as much as him. I came here to introduce myself, properly. A heavy hand landed on Marcus's shoulder before he could respond. Signor Moretti, the Italian investor whose signature Marcus needed for his merger, had pushed through the crowd. His face was flushed with excitement. Julian, you didn't tell me she would be here tonight. Moretti's accent was thick, his voice booming. This is wonderful surprise. Marcus blinked. You know her. Know her. Moretti laughed heartily, turning to Maya and bowing deeply. He took her hand and kissed it with old-world formality. Signora Ashford, it is an honor. I was just telling Marcus that our deal could not proceed without approval from the majority shareholder. The silence that followed was deafening. Majority shareholder. Marcus repeated slowly, as if the words were in a foreign language. Of course. Moretti looked confused. She did not tell you. But surely you know your own ex-wife is the new owner of... Theodore Ashford, Maya interrupted smoothly. Was my great-uncle. He passed away 3 months ago. I inherited his estate, including his controlling interest in several companies, one of which I believe holds a significant position in Webb Capital. Marcus's champagne glass slipped from his fingers. It shattered against the marble floor, the sound sharp and final. That's impossible. Is it? Maya reached into her clutch and withdrew a small tablet. She tapped the screen, then turned it to face Marcus. This is the current ownership structure of Webb Capital Holdings. As of 9 o'clock this morning, I own 51% of outstanding shares. You can't, that's my company. I built it from nothing. You built it with borrowed money, Maya corrected. Money from Sterling Pacific Bank. Money that was collateralized against your personal shares. When the bank called in those loans this morning, you couldn't pay, so they seized your collateral. Sterling Pacific wouldn't. I've been their client for 15 years. Sterling Pacific, Maya said, is part of my inheritance. I've been their owner for 3 months. The tablet showed a simple diagram. Maya's name at the top with lines connecting to shell companies, investment vehicles, and holding structures that all converged on one point, Web Capital Holdings. You've been working for me since breakfast, Maya said. You just didn't know it. Marcus lunged forward, his composure finally cracking. You lying bitch! This is fraud. This is... 2 men in black suits materialized from the crowd, stepping between Marcus and Maya with practiced efficiency. They weren't hotel security. They were her security, former military, former intelligence loyal to the Ashford name. I wouldn't, one of them said quietly. Marcus pulled up short, his chest heaving. His eyes darted around the room, searching for allies, for support, for anyone who might help him. But the faces staring back offered only shocked curiosity and the barely concealed delight of watching a powerful man fall. This can't be legal, Vivian said, her voice shrill. You can't just steal someone's company. I didn't steal anything. Maya's tone was patient, almost kind. I simply enforced the terms of contracts that Marcus himself signed. He leveraged his shares as collateral. When he couldn't repay his debts, those shares were forfeited. Standard business practice. Marcus would know all about that. He's used the same tactic to destroy dozens of smaller companies over the years. She's lying, Marcus shouted at the crowd. She's manipulating you. This is some kind of scheme. A scheme. Maya raised an eyebrow. Like the scheme you ran on the Anderson family business last year, or the Petrosky deal in 2019, or the 17 other acquisitions where you artificially devalued companies, called in debts at strategic moments, and bought assets for pennies on the dollar. She let the silence stretch before continuing. I learned from the best, Marcus. I just had better capital. You were a museum worker. Marcus's voice cracked. You cataloged paintings. You made $32,000 a year. Where the hell did you get billions of dollars? From my family. Maya smiled. The one you never bothered to research. You were so certain I was nothing, Marcus. So confident that I had no connections, no resources, no power. You never thought to look deeper. You never asked questions. You just saw what you wanted to see, a naive, desperate woman who would do whatever you told her. I gave you everything. You gave me scraps from your table and called them feasts. You gave me a role in your performance and called it a marriage. You gave me children and called them liabilities. Maya's voice hardened on the last word. But the thing about underestimating people, Marcus, is that it gives them time. Time to learn. Time to plan. Time to become something you never expected. Harold Whitmore appeared at Maya's elbow carrying a leather folder. He handed it to her without a word. This, Maya said, holding up the folder, is a summary of the board meeting that took place via emergency conference call approximately... She checked her watch 45 minutes ago. The board of Web Capital Holdings has voted to terminate Marcus Webb as CEO, effective immediately, citing gross negligence, fiduciary irresponsibility, and conduct unbecoming of a corporate officer. She opened the folder and began reading. The vote was unanimous, 11-0. Maya looked up. Your own board, Marcus. The people you handpicked, the allies you cultivated for years. When they saw which way the wind was blowing, they couldn't abandon you fast enough. They wouldn't dare. They already did. Maya handed him a single sheet of paper. Here's your termination notice. Security will escort you from any Web Capital property. Your corporate cards have been canceled. Your access codes have been changed. As of this moment, you have no authority, no position, and no connection to the company that bears your name. Marcus stared at the paper in his hands. His face had gone from red to gray, the blood draining away as the reality of his situation finally penetrated. You can't do this to me, he whispered. I already have. I have lawyers. I'll fight this. You'll what? Maya stepped closer, dropping her voice so only he could hear. Fight me in court. With what money? Your assets have been frozen pending a forensic audit. Your penthouse was foreclosed this afternoon. Yes, I know you haven't gotten the notice yet, The building's new owner decided not to renew your lease. Funny coincidence, I own that building too. Marcus's hands were shaking. The termination notice trembled in his grip. This is revenge, he said. This is petty vindictive. This is justice. Maya's voice was cold. You threw divorce papers on my body while I was still bleeding from childbirth. You called our children liabilities. You planned to use them as bargaining chips to extort money from me. You told me I was worthless, a placeholder, a solution to a problem. She leaned in until her face was inches from his. Do I look worthless now? The cameras were rolling. Phones were recording from every angle. Tomorrow, this would be on every news site, every gossip blog, every financial page in the country. Marcus Webb, the arrogant CEO, brought to his knees by the woman he had discarded. Maya stepped back, raising her voice again for the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. Please continue enjoying the evening. The gala will proceed as planned. Consider it under new management. She turned to address a cluster of well-dressed men who had been watching the exchange with undisguised fascination. Signor Moretti, gentlemen of the board, I believe we have business to discuss. The Italian merger is still very much on the table. I simply wanted to introduce myself before we proceed. Of course, Signora Ashford. Moretti was practically glowing. A dramatic power shift at a major corporation was exactly the kind of entertainment old money lived for. We should discuss terms, perhaps somewhere more private. The executive lounge on the third floor. Harold will show you the way. I'll join you in a moment. The investors followed Harold toward the elevators, already chattering among themselves about the implications of what they had witnessed. The crowd began to disperse, the normal rhythms of the gala resuming as people processed what they had seen. But Marcus hadn't moved. He stood rooted to the spot, the termination notice crumpled in his fist, staring at Maya with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Fear, real, genuine fear. We're not done, he said hoarsely. You think this is over? You think you can humiliate me like this and walk away? I think I can do whatever I want. Maya signaled to her security team. I also think you should leave. You're trespassing now. This is my event. This is my building, my gala, my company. You have no claim to anything here, Marcus. Not anymore. I still have the children. The words came out desperate, grasping. The custody agreement. I have rights. Maya's expression flickered for the first time, a crack in her controlled facade. You signed away your parental rights in the divorce papers, she said quietly. You were so eager to avoid child support obligations that you agreed to any language your lawyer suggested. Specifically, you agreed that any children born of the marriage would be solely my responsibility with no financial or custodial claims from you. That's not, I didn't mean. You didn't read what you signed. You were in a hurry to get to your gala. Remember, to announce your engagement to your mistress. Maya glanced at Vivian, who was edging toward the exit. Speaking of which, where is she going? Vivian froze mid-step. Leaving so soon? Maya called out. But we haven't had a chance to chat. I feel like we have so much to discuss. Like, for example, the audio recordings you made of Marcus over the past 3 years. The color drained from Vivian's face. Oh yes. Maya smiled. I know all about your insurance policy. The texts, the emails, the conversations you recorded, just in case things went sideways. Very smart, by the way. A woman should always protect herself. Vivian. Marcus's voice was deadly. What is she talking about? I don't. She came to my lawyers last week, Maya continued. Offered to sell me everything in exchange for keeping her family's name out of the fallout. Very reasonable terms. We closed the deal yesterday. Marcus turned on Vivian with murder in his eyes. You sold me out. Marcus, I can explain. You recorded me for 3 years. It was just insurance, I never thought. You treacherous backstabbing. Enough! Maya's voice cracked like a whip. Save the lovers' quarrel for later. Right now I have business to conduct, and neither of you are welcome here. She nodded to her security team. Escort them both out. Separately. I don't want them comparing notes. Strong hands gripped Marcus's arms. He struggled, shouting protests and threats, but the security personnel were professionals. They moved him toward the exit with quiet efficiency, ignoring his attempts to break free. "This isn't over, Maya," he shouted over his shoulder. "I'll destroy you. I'll burn everything you have to the ground." "Goodbye, Marcus." Maya's voice was calm, almost gentle. "I'd wish you luck, but we both know you don't deserve any." The doors closed behind him. Maya stood alone in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by whispers and stares, and the aftermath of destruction. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were trembling inside her clutch where no one could see. But she didn't cry. She didn't collapse. She didn't let the mask slip for even a moment. She turned and walked toward the elevators, toward the investors waiting to discuss the future of the company she had just seized. Each step was steady, confident, deliberate. The woman who had been thrown away had returned, and she was just getting started. The executive lounge was quiet compared to the chaos downstairs. Moretti and the other investors were seated around a polished conference table, drinks in hand, watching Maya with a mixture of respect and wariness. "Signora Ashford." Moretti gestured to an empty chair. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." Maya remained standing. "I prefer to keep this brief. I know you have questions." "Many questions," said a silver-haired man at the far end of the table, Jonathan Pierce. She knew from her research one of the original investors in Web Capital, a man who had made his fortune in telecommunications, starting with why we should trust someone who just executed a hostile takeover using what appears to be insider banking information. A fair concern. Maya folded her hands in front of her. "Let me be direct. I didn't come here looking for revenge, despite what it might look like. I came here because Marcus Webb was going to drive this company into the ground, and I had the means to stop him." "Drive it into the ground," another investor scoffed. "His stock is up 40% since the Tanaka merger." "His stock is up because he's been cooking the books." Maya nodded to Harold, who began distributing folders to each person at the table. "These are the results of a forensic audit conducted over the past 8 weeks. Marcus has been hiding losses in shell companies, inflating revenue projections, and using new investor capital to pay returns to existing investors." "That's a serious accusation," Pierce said slowly. "It's a serious crime. The SEC will be receiving these documents on Monday. I'm giving you a preview because you deserve to know what you've been invested in, and because I want to give you an alternative." Moretti leaned forward. "What kind of alternative?" "I'm restructuring Web Capital. New management, new oversight, new ethics. The core business is sound. It just needs someone who isn't running it like a personal piggy bank. I'm prepared to guarantee your initial investments, honor all existing commitments, and provide a clear path to profitability within 18 months. "And what do you get out of this arrangement?" Pierce asked. "Control, accountability, the satisfaction of building something legitimate on the ashes of something corrupt." Maya met his gaze evenly. "I also get the pleasure of knowing that Marcus Webb will spend the rest of his life watching me succeed where he failed." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Moretti laughed a deep, genuine sound. "I like her," he announced to no one in particular. "She has fire. She reminds me of my grandmother. God rest her soul, who built an empire in Naples after the war with nothing but determination and a very creative approach to accounting." "Is that a yes?" Maya asked. "It's a let me see the numbers." Moretti opened his folder. "But I am optimistic. A woman who can do what you did tonight, this is someone worth betting on." One by one, the other investors began reviewing the documents Harold had distributed. Maya watched their faces, reading the shifts in expression as they absorbed the evidence of Marcus's fraud. "My God," someone muttered. "How did we miss this?" "You trusted him," Maya said. "He was charming and confident and successful. He told you what you wanted to hear and you didn't ask questions. It's not stupidity, it's human nature. Predators like Marcus count on it. You seem to know a lot about predators. Pierce observed. I was married to one. Maya's voice was steady. I learned more in those 3 years than I did in a lifetime of school. The most important lesson: never let anyone make you feel small, and never underestimate someone just because they're not as loud as you. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. Numbers were reviewed, projections were discussed, concerns were addressed. By the time the investors filed out, Maya had secured commitments from all but one, and that holdout promised to reconsider after reviewing the materials with his own team. Harold stayed behind as the room emptied. That went well, he said. Better than I expected. It's not over. Maya sank into a chair, finally allowing herself to feel the exhaustion that had been building all night. Marcus won't accept this. He'll fight back. Of course he will. The question is how. He'll try to hurt me. He'll try to find leverage, anything he can use. Maya closed her eyes. He mentioned the children. He has no legal claim to them. Since when has Marcus cared about legal claims? He'll find another angle. He always does. Harold was quiet for a moment. We have security in place. The estate is protected. The children are safe. For now. Maya opened her eyes. But Marcus is desperate now. Desperate and angry and humiliated. That's when people become dangerous. What would you like me to do? Maya stood walking to the window. The city glittered below millions of lights, in millions of windows, millions of lives, proceeding without any knowledge of the drama playing out in this small room. Double the security. Put surveillance on Marcus. I want to know where he goes, who he talks to, what he's planning, and reach out to Vivian again. Vivian, I thought we had everything we needed from her. We have everything she offered. I want to know if there's more things she might have held back, things she might not have realized were important. Maya turned from the window. Marcus is going to try something. I need to be ready. You think she'll cooperate? I think Vivian Cole is a survivor just like me, and survivors know when to pick the winning side. Harold nodded, making notes in his ever-present leather folder. I'll make the arrangements. In the meantime, you should go home. See your children. Get some rest. Rest. Maya laughed softly. I'm not sure I remember how. Learn. Harold's voice was gentle. You've won the first battle, Maya. But this war will be long, and you'll need your strength. Maya gathered her clutch and wrap, pausing at the door. Harold. Yes. Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You could have. Harold smiled. It just would have taken longer. Theodore saw something in you, something strong and resilient and fierce. I'm merely helping it emerge. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She walked out into the corridor, her heels echoing against the marble. The gala was still going strong. Below, she could hear the music, the laughter, the clink of glasses. Life continuing as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Maya stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the ground floor. The doors closed, encasing her in silence. She caught her reflection in the mirrored walls, the dress, the jewels, the woman she had become. 3 months ago, she had been crying in a hospital bed, convinced her life was over. Now she stood in the wreckage of her enemy's empire, victorious. So why did she feel so hollow? The elevator doors opened. Maya walked through the lobby, ignoring the curious glances, the whispers the phones raised to capture her exit. She stepped into the waiting limousine and let the door close behind her. Home, she said to the driver. Take me home. As the car pulled away from the plaza, Maya allowed herself one moment of weakness. She leaned her head against the cool window and let the tears fall. Tears of exhaustion, of relief, of something that might have been grief for the life she had lost and the innocence she had shed. Then she wiped her eyes, straightened her spine, and began reviewing the security reports Harold had left in the car. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. 2 weeks after the gala, Marcus Webb sat in a dingy hotel room in Midtown, staring at the wall. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and regret. The bedspread was stained. The television played news coverage of his downfall on a loop. The same clips recycled every hour. The same humiliating footage of him being escorted out of his own charity event. Disgraced CEO Marcus Webb faces mounting legal troubles, the anchor announced cheerfully. Sources say the SEC has opened a formal investigation into allegations of securities fraud, while former investors are reportedly exploring civil litigation. Marcus hurled the remote at the screen. It bounced off harmlessly and clattered to the floor. His phone buzzed. Another creditor. Another threat. Another nail in the coffin of his former life. He had nothing left. The penthouse was gone, foreclosed, just as Maya had promised. His bank accounts were frozen. His credit cards declined at every transaction. The designer suits in his closet had been seized along with everything else, leaving him with whatever he'd been wearing that night, and a handful of clothes purchased with the last of his accessible cash. Even Vivian had abandoned him. She'd released a statement through her publicist expressing shock and dismay at the revelations about Marcus's business practices, positioning herself as another victim of his deception. The press had eaten it up. Poor Vivian Cole, the heiress who had been fooled by a charming con man. Marcus knew the truth. Vivian had orchestrated her own escape, selling him out to Maya and then playing the innocent for the cameras. She was probably laughing at him right now from her family's townhouse in the Upper East Side. Everyone was laughing at him. A knock at the door made him jump. "Room service didn't order anything," he muttered, not moving from the bed. The knock came again, harder this time. Marcus grabbed the lamp from the nightstand, the only potential weapon in the room, and approached the door carefully. "Who is it?" "Open the door, Mr. Webb. We need to talk." The voice was unfamiliar. Male. Calm. Professional. Marcus cracked the door, keeping the chain latched. A man stood in the hallway, average height, average build, forgettable face. He was wearing a plain gray suit and carrying a manila envelope. "I don't know you," Marcus said. "No, but I know you." The man held up the envelope. "And I have a proposition that might interest you." "I'm not interested in propositions. Even one that could get you everything back, your company, your reputation, your money." Marcus hesitated. His hand tightened on the lamp. "Who sent you?" "People who have their own reasons for wanting to see Maya Ashford fail. People with resources. People who can help you if you're willing to help yourself." Against his better judgment, Marcus unlatched the chain and opened the door. The man stepped inside, glancing around the shabby room with an expression of mild distaste. "Quite a fall from grace, Mr. Webb." "Get to the point." "The point is simple." The man set the envelope on the bed. "Maya Ashford has made powerful enemies during her takeover of your company. Foreign investors who lost money. Competitors who see an opportunity. Even some people within the Ashford organization who don't appreciate how quickly she's consolidating power. So there are people who hate her. So what? That doesn't help me. It helps you because those people are willing to fund your revenge. Quietly, of course. Untraceable funds. Complete deniability." The man smiled thinly. "All we need from you is a plan. Something that will bring her down permanently." Marcus opened the envelope. Inside were account statements showing deposits totaling $5 million in an offshore account already in his name. "This is real. Completely real. Consider it a down payment. There's more available once you deliver results." Marcus stared at the numbers. $5 million wouldn't restore his empire, but it would give him options. Lawyers, investigators, the tools he needed to fight back. "What kind of results are we talking about?" "That's up to you." The man headed for the door. "But I'd suggest thinking creatively. Legal battles take years. Maya Ashford has enough money to bury you in paperwork until you're old and gray. If you want to hurt her quickly, you'll need to find something she can't protect with lawyers." "Like what?" The man paused at the threshold. "She has 3 children, doesn't she, triplets? I hear she's quite devoted to them." The door closed behind him. Marcus stood alone in the hotel room, the account statements clutched in his fist. His heart was pounding, His mind was racing. The children, of course. Maya could protect herself. She had money security lawyers' power. But the children were vulnerable. 3 tiny human beings who depended entirely on their mother for protection. If he could take them even temporarily, he would have leverage. He could force Maya to negotiate to give back what she had stolen to restore his rightful position. It wasn't kidnapping, he told himself. They were his children too. He had rights regardless of what some hastily signed divorce papers said. Any court would recognize a father's claim to his own flesh and blood. And if Maya resisted, if she tried to fight, well, accidents happened. Tragic, unavoidable accidents that no one could have predicted. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed a number he had hoped never to use. "It's Webb," he said when the line connected. "I need a team, professional, discreet, and I need them ready to move within the week." The voice on the other end asked a question. "How much?" Marcus looked at the account statements. "Money isn't a problem anymore. Just get me people who can do the job." He hung up and sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at his reflection in the darkened television screen. The man looking back at him wasn't the polished CEO who had commanded boardrooms and charity galas. That man was gone, stripped away by Maya's surgical destruction. What remained was something more dangerous, something with nothing left to lose. Maya would learn soon enough that cornered animals fight the hardest. 3 days later, Harold Whitmore arrived at the Ashford estate with troubling news. "We've intercepted concerning communications," he said, setting his briefcase on Maya's desk. "Marcus has been reaching out to certain individuals with specialized skills." Maya looked up from the quarterly reports she had been reviewing. What kind of individuals? Former military contractors, private security firms with questionable reputations. The kind of people one hires when legal solutions aren't sufficient. He's planning something. Almost certainly. Our surveillance indicates he's received a significant influx of funds from an unknown source. $5 million, possibly more. Maya set down her pen. Someone is bankrolling him. It appears so. We're working to trace the source, but the money moved through several offshore accounts before reaching him. Whoever provided it knows how to cover their tracks. Enemies I've made. Potentially. You've disrupted several lucrative arrangements during the restructuring. Foreign investors who were profiting from Marcus's creative accounting are now facing losses. Competitors who hoped Webb Capital would collapse entirely are unhappy that you've stabilized it. Any number of parties might see value in funding Marcus's vendetta. Maya stood walking to the window that overlooked the garden where the triplets were playing under their nanny's watchful eye. Noah was attempting to climb a small tree while Elijah watched with serious concentration. Serena had found a flower and was examining it with the intensity of a scientist studying a new species. "He mentioned the children," she said quietly. "At the gala. He said he still had rights." "He has no legal rights. The custody arrangement." "Since when has Marcus cared about what's legal?" Maya turned back to Harold. "He's desperate and angry, and he's been given resources. The children are the only leverage he has left. The estate is secure. Our security team isn't enough." Maya's voice was sharp. "I want it doubled. No tripled. I want surveillance on every approach, every vehicle that comes within a mile of this property. I want safe rooms, prepared evacuation protocols established, and I want the children never left alone, not even for a moment." "Maya, you're talking about turning this estate into a fortress. I'm talking about protecting my children from a man who called them liabilities and is now desperate enough to use them as bargaining chips." Maya's eyes flashed with fierce intensity. "Do whatever it takes, Harold. Whatever it costs. I will not let him touch them." Harold nodded slowly. "I'll make the arrangements. But Maya, there's another option we should consider." "What option?" "Ending this. Permanently. Not through legal channels, but through negotiation. We could offer Marcus a settlement, enough money to disappear to start over somewhere far away. It would be expensive, but it might be cheaper in the long run than an extended security operation." You want me to pay him off. I want you to consider whether victory is worth the constant threat hanging over your children's heads. Marcus is dangerous precisely because he has nothing left. If we give him something a reason to walk away, we might be able to defuse the situation before it escalates. Maya was quiet for a long moment, watching her children through the window. He threw divorce papers on my body while I was bleeding from childbirth, she said finally. He called our children liabilities. He planned to use them as leverage from the very beginning. And now you want me to reward him for that, to give him money so he'll leave us alone. I want you to be practical. I am being practical. Maya turned to face Harold fully. If I pay him off, what message does that send? That he can threaten and scheme and conspire, and I'll write him a check to make the problem go away. He'll just come back for more. Men like Marcus always do. So, what would you have me do? Find out what he's planning, who he's hired, what their capabilities are, what timeline he's working on, and prepare countermeasures. If Marcus wants a fight, I'll give him one, but on my terms, not his. That's a dangerous game. It's the only game he left me. Maya's voice hardened. I didn't ask for this war, Harold. I didn't want any of this. I wanted a quiet life, a happy family, a husband who actually loved me. Marcus took all of that away, and when I rebuilt myself from the ashes, he couldn't accept it. He had to keep pushing, keep threatening, keep trying to destroy me. She walked back to her desk, picking up a photograph of the triplets that sat beside her computer. I'm done being defensive. I'm done waiting for him to make his move. If Marcus is planning something, I want to know about it before he acts. And when he makes his play, I want to be ready to end this once and for all. Harold studied her for a long moment. You've changed, he said quietly. Theodore would be proud and concerned. Concerned about what? That you might lose yourself in this. That the woman who read The Count of Monte Cristo in his library might forget the book's real lesson that revenge, even when justified, comes at a terrible cost. Maya set down the photograph. I remember the lesson, she said. But I also remember what happened to people who showed mercy to their enemies. They got betrayed. They got destroyed. They got divorce papers thrown on their bodies while they were bleeding from childbirth. She met Harold's eyes with cold determination. I won't make that mistake. Find out what Marcus is planning, and find out who's funding him. I want to know everyone involved in this conspiracy, and I want to make sure every single one of them regrets the day they decided to target my family. The intelligence arrived 4 days later. Marcus had assembled a team of 6 men, former private military contractors, who had been discharged from reputable firms for excessive violence, corner-cutting, and general disregard for legal boundaries. They were exactly the kind of people one hired for jobs that couldn't be discussed in polite company. The plan, as best Harold's investigators could determine, was simple but brutal. Marcus would stage a custody dispute, showing up at the estate with lawyers and cameras demanding to see his children, making a public spectacle of being denied access. When Maya's security intervened, his team would use the chaos as cover to breach the property through a secondary entrance. The goal wasn't kidnapping in the traditional sense. Marcus knew he couldn't simply vanish with 3 children and expect to avoid consequences. Instead, his plan was to take them briefly, just long enough to get them off the property and into a vehicle, and then use them as leverage to force Maya into negotiations. Sign over the company, and you get them back unharmed. Refuse, and accidents happen. He's insane, Maya said when Harold finished the briefing. He thinks this will work. He's desperate. Desperate people don't think clearly. They see what they want to see and ignore the flaws in their plans. What are the flaws? Several. His team is good, but they're not elite. They've gotten sloppy over the years, too many easy jobs, too much reliance on intimidation rather than skill. Our security personnel are better trained and better motivated. And he's underestimating you. Again. He still sees the woman from the hospital bed, the naive librarian who signed whatever papers he put in front of her. He doesn't understand what you've become. Maya stood pacing the length of her office. Her mind was racing, processing the information, calculating responses. When is he planning to move? Our best estimate is within the next 3 days. He's been making final preparations, equipment purchases, vehicle rentals, reconnaissance of the property. Everything suggests he's almost ready. Then we don't wait. Maya stopped pacing and faced Harold with fierce determination. We move first. We set a trap. A trap. He wants to stage a custody confrontation, right? Cameras and lawyers and a big public scene. Fine. Let's give him exactly what he wants, but on our terms. We control the narrative. We control the timing. We control the outcome. Harold leaned forward. What are you proposing? We leak information. Let Marcus think we're moving the children to a different location, somewhere less secure, easier to approach. We make it look like a routine transfer, nothing suspicious. His team takes the bait, they make their move, and we're ready for them. That puts the children at risk. No. Maya's voice was steel. The children won't be anywhere near it. We use decoys, security personnel in the vehicles playing the part. When Marcus's team makes their move, they'll find armed professionals instead of helpless targets. And we'll have it all on camera, documented proof of their intentions. And Marcus himself. He'll be there. He has to be. He won't trust anyone else to handle the final negotiation. When his plan falls apart, when he realizes he's been outmaneuvered, he'll do something stupid. Something that gives us grounds to end this permanently. Harold considered the plan carefully. It's risky. A lot of variables. A lot of ways things could go wrong. Everything about this situation is risky. At least this way we're choosing where and when to take the risk. Maya sat back down, her posture radiating controlled tension. I'm done waiting for Marcus to make his move. I'm done looking over my shoulder every time I take my children outside. This ends now, Harold, one way or another. And if he doesn't take the bait, then we find another way. But he'll take it. Marcus has never been able to resist what looks like an easy victory. It's his greatest weakness. Harold nodded slowly. I'll make the arrangements. We'll need to coordinate with local law enforcement quietly, of course. We'll want them nearby but not visible. FBI, Maya said. Not local police. I want federal charges. Conspiracy to commit kidnapping, crossing state lines to commit a violent crime, whatever we can make stick. I want Marcus put away for decades, not months. That will require federal jurisdiction. Evidence of interstate commerce communication across state lines. His funding came from offshore accounts. His team was recruited from multiple states. The evidence is there, we just need to document it properly. And the people funding him? The anonymous benefactors? Maya's eyes hardened. Once Marcus is in custody, once the FBI is involved, we'll have resources to trace those funds. Whoever thought they could use Marcus as a weapon against me, they'll learn what happens when you come after my family. The next 72 hours were a blur of preparation. Security teams were briefed and positioned. Vehicles were arranged. Communication protocols were established. Every detail was reviewed, every contingency planned for. Maya barely slept. She spent her nights in the nursery, watching her children breathe, memorizing the curves of their faces, the sounds of their soft murmurs in sleep. I won't let him hurt you, she whispered to them in the darkness. I won't let anyone hurt you. Ever. The morning of the operation dawned gray and cold. Maya stood at the window of her office watching the security vehicles being prepared in the driveway. 2 SUVs identical to the ones regularly used for family transportation. Inside, each trained operatives dressed to look like nanny and children from a distance. Harold entered with a final briefing. Everything is in place. The leak has been distributed through channels Marcus's people are monitoring. They believe you're moving the children to a secure facility in Connecticut, a shorter route, less security, easier to intercept. And the real children? Safe. The nursery is locked down, secondary security team in place. No one gets in or out without proper authorization. Maya nodded, not taking her eyes off the vehicles. Marcus took the bait. His team started moving an hour ago. They're positioning themselves along the route exactly as we predicted. Marcus himself left his hotel 30 minutes ago. He's being followed by our surveillance. FBI. Standing by. They'll move when we give the signal. Maya finally turned from the window. Then let's end this. She picked up her phone and made a single call. It's time. Begin the transfer. Outside, the security vehicles pulled out of the driveway and headed toward the main gate. Somewhere along the route, Marcus Webb was waiting. He had no idea what was about to hit him. The convoy moved smoothly through the morning traffic, heading north toward Connecticut. 2 black SUVs, professional drivers. Nothing unusual. Just another wealthy family moving their children to a safer location. That's what it was supposed to look like. That's what Marcus believed. He was parked on a side road 3 miles from the estate, watching through binoculars as the vehicles approached. His team was positioned at the intercept point, a stretch of road that curved through a patch of forest, limited visibility, easy to block. "They're coming," he said into his radio. "Get ready." Everything was falling into place. Maya thought she was so smart, so protected, but she'd made a mistake. She'd gotten predictable, using the same routes, the same vehicles, the same patterns. Now she would pay for that predictability. The first SUV rounded the curve and found the road blocked by a delivery truck that had broken down at the worst possible spot. The driver slowed, then stopped. The second SUV pulled up behind it. Marcus's team moved. 4 men emerged from the trees wearing tactical gear, faces covered. They approached the vehicles quickly, professionally, weapons drawn but not aimed. This wasn't supposed to be violent, just a quick extraction. Get the kids, get out, force the negotiation. The lead man reached the first SUV and yanked open the rear door. The barrel of a gun pressed against his forehead. "FBI, don't move." For a moment, everything froze. Then all hell broke loose. The delivery truck transformed as agents burst from the back, weapons raised. More vehicles appeared from hidden positions along the road, unmarked sedans, tactical vans. Helicopters thundered overhead, their rotors drowning out the shouted commands. Marcus's team didn't stand a chance. They were surrounded, outgunned, and completely unprepared for professional resistance. Within minutes, all 6 men were face down on the asphalt, hands cuffed behind their backs. But Marcus wasn't with them. He had seen the trap springing and made a desperate decision. While his team was being taken down, he slammed his car into reverse tires, screaming against the pavement. He didn't get far. 2 SUVs blocked his escape route, the real security vehicles, the ones that had been waiting for exactly this moment. Marcus's car crashed into them with a sickening crunch of metal and glass. When the agents pulled him from the wreckage, he was bleeding from a cut on his forehead and screaming threats that made no sense. "You can't do this to me. I have rights. Those are my children. I'm their father." "Agent Morrison." The FBI team leader looked at him with cold professionalism. "Marcus Webb, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, attempted kidnapping of a minor, conspiracy to commit extortion, and violation of federal firearm statutes. You have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you use it." They loaded him into a federal vehicle, while cameras, Maya's cameras positioned in advance, recorded everything. Marcus's face, bloodied and desperate, would be on every news channel by evening. His reputation, already shattered, would be obliterated beyond any hope of recovery. And his freedom, the last thing he had left, was gone. Maya watched the footage on a secure feed from her office. She watched Marcus being dragged from his wrecked car. She watched him shouting, struggling, completely unraveled. She watched the man who had thrown divorce papers on her bleeding body being processed like a common criminal. She felt nothing, no satisfaction, no triumph, no relief, just a vast, echoing emptiness where the hatred had been. "It's done," Harold said quietly from beside her. "He'll face federal charges. Minimum sentence for these crimes is 20 to 30 years. With the evidence we have, the recordings, the communications, the financial trail, he'll never see the outside of a prison again." Maya nodded slowly. "And the people who funded him, the FBI is already tracing the accounts. Our intelligence suggests the money came from a consortium of foreign investors. the ones who lost the most when you restructured the company. They'll face their own consequences soon enough. Good. Harold studied her with concern. You should feel victorious. You've won Maya. Completely and utterly. Marcus Webb is destroyed, his conspirators will be exposed. Your children are safe. Everything you set out to accomplish has been achieved. I know. Then why do you look like you've lost something? Maya was quiet for a long moment, staring at the frozen image of Marcus's face on the screen. The twisted rage, the desperate fear, the complete dissolution of the man he had once been. Because I have, she said finally. I've lost the woman I used to be. The one who believed in love and second chances, in the fundamental goodness of people. She's gone, Harold. Killed the same day Marcus threw those papers on my body. Perhaps that's not the loss. Perhaps it's an evolution. Perhaps. Maya turned off the screen, unable to look at Marcus's face any longer. But evolution has costs. I've become something harder, something colder, something that can watch a man's life be destroyed and feel nothing but emptiness. You feel nothing because he deserved everything he received. Maybe, or maybe I've simply run out of feelings to spare for him. Maya walked to the window, looking out at the garden, where her children would soon be playing again. Safe, protected, unaware of how close danger had come. Is that strength, Harold? Or is it damage? Harold didn't answer. Some questions had no easy answers. I want to see my children, Maya said after a long silence. I want to hold them and remember why I did all of this. Can you handle the rest? The press statements, the legal coordination, whatever else needs to be done. Of course. Maya nodded and walked toward the door. She paused at the threshold. Harold, yes. Thank you. For everything. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For helping me become someone who could survive this. Theodore chose well, Harold said simply. I just helped you see what was already there. Maya smiled, a small, tired expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. I hope so. I hope that somewhere underneath all this armor, the real Maya is still there. I hope my children will get to meet her someday. She left the office and walked down the long hallway toward the nursery, toward the only thing that still made her feel human. Behind her, the screens showed Marcus Webb being loaded into a federal transport vehicle, the first step on a journey that would end in a prison cell. His empire was ashes. His freedom was gone. His legacy was destruction. And Maya Sterling. No. Maya Ashford now walked away from the wreckage toward the only empire that had ever mattered. Her children, her future, her victory. 5 years later, Maya stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the sun rise over Manhattan. The building beneath her feet bore her name now, Ashford Tower, the tallest structure in the financial district, a monument to everything she had built from the ashes of Marcus Webb's empire. The company that had once been Webb Capital was unrecognizable, transformed into Ashford Global Ventures, a powerhouse of ethical investment and sustainable development that had become the gold standard of the industry. But Maya wasn't thinking about business this morning. She was thinking about the 3 whirlwinds of energy who would be arriving in approximately 15 minutes, driven by their nanny from the estate in the Hamptons for a very special occasion. Today was their 5th birthday. The conference room is prepared, her assistant announced through the intercom, and the caterer wants to know if you'd prefer the unicorn cake or the rocket ship cake for the party. Maya smiled. Both. One for Serena, one for the boys. They've been arguing about it for weeks. Both it is. Also, Mr. Whitmore is here. He says it's important. Send him in. Harold Whitmore entered the office looking much the same as he had 5 years ago. Perhaps a few more gray hairs, a few more lines around his eyes, but the same sharp intelligence, the same quiet dignity. He had officially retired 2 years ago, but he still showed up regularly, unable to fully let go of the empire he had helped build. You look tired, he said by way of greeting. I was up late reviewing the Singapore acquisition. Their board is being difficult about the environmental provisions. They'll come around. They always do. Harold settled into the chair across from her desk. I have news. I thought you'd want to hear it in person. Something in his tone made Maya's attention sharpen. What kind of news? Marcus Webb died last night. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and strange. Maya had expected to feel something relief, perhaps, or satisfaction, or even grief for the man she had once loved. Instead, she felt only a distant curiosity, as if Harold had told her about the death of a stranger. How? Heart attack. He'd been in poor health for the past year. The prison doctors had warned him about his blood pressure, his weight, the stress. He ignored them, apparently. The guards found him in his cell this morning. Maya turned back to the window, watching the city wake up below her. Did he suffer? The medical report suggests it was quick, a few minutes at most. Good. The word came out before Maya could stop it. She wasn't sure if she meant it was good that he hadn't suffered, or good that he was finally gone. Perhaps both. There's more, Harold continued. His lawyer contacted us this morning. Apparently, Marcus left instructions, a letter to be delivered to you upon his death. Maya turned sharply. A letter. The lawyer is downstairs. He's been waiting for an hour, insisting on delivering it personally. Maya considered refusing. Whatever Marcus had wanted to say to her from beyond the grave, she wasn't sure she wanted to hear it. The man had tried to kidnap her children, had threatened her life, had spent his years in prison, sending angry letters that she had burned unopened. But something made her hesitate. Curiosity, perhaps, or the need for closure that she had never quite achieved despite all her victories. Send him up. The lawyer was a young man, probably assigned to Marcus's case because no one senior wanted it. He looked nervous, clutching a sealed envelope like it might explode. Mrs. Ashford, thank you for seeing me. Ms. Ashford, Maya corrected automatically. I never took the Webb name back. What do you have for me? The lawyer handed over the envelope with visible relief. Mr. Webb wrote this 3 months ago after his first heart attack. He gave specific instructions that it should only be delivered to you personally upon his death. Maya took the envelope. It was thin, a single page, maybe 2. Her name was written on the front in Marcus's handwriting, the letters shaky and uneven. Nothing like the confident script she remembered. Thank you. You can go. The lawyer practically fled. Harold rose to leave as well, but Maya stopped him with a gesture. Stay, please. She opened the envelope and unfolded the single page inside. Marcus's handwriting filled the paper, cramped and difficult to read, as if he had struggled to hold the pen steady. Maya, it began. By the time you read this, I'll be dead. The doctors tell me my heart is failing, which feels appropriate somehow. It failed a long time ago. I just didn't realize it until I was sitting in a prison cell with nothing but time to think. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, and you wouldn't give it anyway. You were always smarter than I gave you credit for. That was my first mistake, one of thousands. I'm writing because I need you to know something. Something I never admitted to anyone, including myself, until it was far too late. I loved you. Not the way you deserve to be loved, not the way a husband should love his wife, but somewhere buried under all the ambition and greed and fear, there was something real. I saw it sometimes late at night when you were sleeping next to me, when you smiled at something I said, when you told me about your day at the museum, with that light in your eyes that I could never quite understand. I didn't know what to do with it. Love felt like weakness to me, like something that could be used against me. So I buried it. I built walls around it. I convinced myself that what we had was a transaction, a business arrangement, because that was easier than admitting I had let someone past my defenses. And then, when I had everything I thought I wanted, I threw it away. I threw you away. I told myself it was strategic, practical, necessary. But the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of what I felt when I looked at you. Afraid of what it might cost me if I let myself need someone. So I hurt you instead. I hurt you in ways I can never take back, in ways that still wake me up at night in this cell. I told myself you were nothing, worthless, disposable, and I almost believed it. But you weren't nothing, Maya. You were everything. And I was too broken to see it until I had already destroyed any chance of keeping you. I know this letter doesn't change anything. It doesn't undo what I did. It doesn't bring back the years we lost, the family we could have had, the life we might have lived if I had been a different man. But I wanted you to know. Before I die, I wanted someone to know the truth that Marcus Webb, for all his cruelty and ambition and greed, was capable of love. He just didn't have the courage to show it. Take care of the children. I know you will. They're lucky to have you, luckier than they'll ever understand. And Maya, be happy. You deserve it more than anyone I've ever known. Marcus? Maya read the letter twice, then a third time. Then she folded it carefully and set it on her desk. What does it say? Harold asked quietly. He says he loved me. Harold was silent for a moment. Do you believe him? Maya considered the question carefully. I believe he believed it at the end. When he had nothing left, when all his defenses were stripped away, I think he finally understood what he had thrown away. She touched the letter with her fingertips. But it doesn't matter now. The man who wrote this letter wasn't the man who threw divorce papers on my body. That man was incapable of love, or at least incapable of showing it in any way that wasn't destructive. What will you do with it? Maya picked up the letter and walked to the small fireplace in the corner of her office, decorative mostly but functional on cold days. She had used it before, burning the angry letters Marcus had sent from prison, destroying his words without reading them. But this time she hesitated. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me wants to burn it like all the others, to refuse him even this small connection, this final attempt to matter. And the other part thinks maybe I should keep it. Not for him, for me. As a reminder that even the worst people have something human buried inside them. That the man who hurt me was still in some twisted way a man. Maya stood at the fireplace for a long moment, the letter in her hand. Then she walked to her desk and placed it in a drawer. I'll decide later, she said. Today isn't about Marcus. Today is about the children. As if summoned by her words, the intercom buzzed. Ms. Ashford, your children are here. Maya's face transformed. The tired executive disappeared, replaced by something softer, brighter, more alive. Send them up. The door burst open 30 seconds later, and 3 small tornadoes exploded into the office. Mommy! Noah reached her first, throwing his arms around her legs with the full-body commitment that only 5-year-olds possess. Elijah was right behind him, slightly more reserved, but no less enthusiastic. And Serena, beautiful, fierce, Serena stood in the doorway with her hands on her hips, surveying the office like a queen examining her domain. This is where you work, Serena demanded. It's very high up. 57 floors, Maya confirmed, scooping Noah into her arms and pulling Elijah close with her free hand. You can see almost the whole city from here. I want to see... Noah squirmed toward the windows. Me too, Elijah echoed. Maya carried them to the glass, pointing out landmarks, the park where they had picnics, the museum where she used to work, the bridge that led to their house in the Hamptons. And that building there, she said, pointing to a structure being demolished in the distance, used to be called something else. But we're tearing it down to build something new, something better. What will it be? Noah asked. A school, for kids who don't have families to take care of them. They'll learn and play and grow, and when they're old enough, they'll go out into the world and do amazing things. Like us, Elijah asked seriously. Just like you. Serena had finally deigned to join them at the window. She studied the city below with an expression that reminded Maya painfully of Marcus, the same calculating intelligence, the same sense of ownership over everything in view. But there was something softer in Serena's eyes, too. Something Maya liked to think came from her. Mommy, Serena said. Where's our dad? Maya felt Harold's eyes on her from across the room. This was the question she had dreaded for 5 years, the conversation she had rehearsed 1,000 times in her mind without ever finding the right words. She set Noah down and knelt so she was at eye level with all three of them. "Your father," she said carefully, "was a man who made a lot of mistakes. He got lost along the way, he forgot what was really important, and he hurt people because of it." "Did he hurt you?" Elijah asked. "Yes, he hurt me very much, but he also gave me the three of you, which means some part of him must have wanted something good in the world." "Is he coming back?" Noah's voice was small, uncertain. Maya took a deep breath. "No, sweetheart. He's not coming back. He passed away. Do you remember what that means?" The children nodded solemnly. They had learned about death when their goldfish had died last year, and again when Harold's cat had passed. "He's gone forever?" Serena asked. "Yes." "Are you sad?" Maya considered the question honestly, the way she always tried to do with her children. "I'm sad for what could have been," she said finally. "I'm sad that you'll never know him, that you'll only have stories about him instead of memories. But I'm not sad that he's gone because he was someone who might have hurt you if he'd had the chance. And protecting you, keeping you safe and happy and loved, that's the most important thing in the world to me." "More important than your big building?" Noah asked. Maya laughed, pulling all three of them into a fierce hug. "Much more important. The building is just a building. You three are my whole heart." "That's a lot of heart," Elijah observed thoughtfully. "3 whole people." "It is a lot," Maya agreed. "But hearts are stretchy. The more you love, the bigger they get." Serena looked skeptical. "That's not scientifically accurate." "It's emotionally accurate," Maya countered. "And sometimes that's more important." The children seemed satisfied with this answer. They returned to exploring the office opening drawers empty. Maya had made sure spinning in her chair, pressing buttons on the phone system that connected to increasingly confused assistants. Harold appeared at Maya's elbow. "Masterfully handled," he said quietly. "I've been practicing that speech for 5 years. I'm glad it finally came out right." "What will you tell them when they're older, when they want to know the full story?" Maya watched her children play, their laughter filling the office that had seen so much strategy, so much planning, so much cold calculation. "I'll tell them the truth, all of it. The good and the bad, the love and the hate, the woman I was and the woman I became. I won't hide anything from them. They deserve to understand where they came from, even the ugly parts. And Marcus's letter. Maybe I'll show them that too someday. So they know their father wasn't a monster, not entirely, just a broken man who didn't know how to love without destroying. That's very generous." "It's not generosity." Maya turned to face Harold. "It's strategy. If I teach them to hate Marcus, they'll spend their lives carrying that hate. It'll poison them the way it almost poisoned me. But if I teach them to understand him, to see him as a cautionary tale, a lesson in what not to become, then they can learn from his mistakes without repeating them." "Theodore would be proud," Harold said. "He always said the best revenge was living well. You've certainly done that." "I've tried." Maya looked around the office, the empire she had built, the legacy she was creating. "But I've also learned that revenge isn't really about the person you're getting revenge against. It's about yourself, what you're willing to become, what you're willing to sacrifice." "What did you sacrifice?" "Innocence, trust, the belief that people are fundamentally good." Maya's voice was soft, reflective. "But I gained things too. Strength, clarity, the knowledge that I can survive anything, that I can protect the people I love, that I am not the helpless woman Marcus thought I was." "Was it worth it?" Maya watched Serena trying to teach her brothers how to use the office intercom, explaining the buttons with the patient condescension of an older sister. Noah was pressing random buttons anyway, giggling at the confused voices responding. Elijah was taking notes in an imaginary notebook, pretending to be a scientist studying the phenomenon. "Ask me again in 20 years, she said. "When they're grown, when they've made their own choices, when I can see who they've become. Then I'll know if it was worth it." "Fair enough." Harold checked his watch. I should go. The party preparations need supervision, and your caterer is having some kind of breakdown about the cake. Both cakes. Both cakes, yes. Apparently the unicorn's horn keeps falling off. Maya smiled. Handle it. I'll bring the children down in an hour. Harold nodded and left. Maya turned back to her children who had discovered the window washing apparatus and were debating whether a person could ride it to the ground. Absolutely not, Maya said, interrupting the discussion. Nobody is riding anything outside this building. But Mommy, Noah began. No. What if? Elijah tried. No. Serena the strategist tried a different approach. What if we just looked at it more closely, for educational purposes? You can look at it from inside, through the glass, while holding my hand. The children grumbled, but accepted defeat. Maya gathered them close, looking out at the city that she had conquered, the empire she had built, the future stretching out before them like a promise. Do you know what today is? She asked. Our birthday, all three shouted. That's right. 5 years ago today, you came into the world tiny and loud and perfect. And everything changed. Changed how? Elijah asked. Changed because suddenly I had something worth fighting for. Something worth becoming stronger for. Something that made all the hard times worth enduring. We made you stronger. Noah looked impressed with himself. You made me everything. Maya kissed the top of his head. You made me brave when I wanted to hide. You made me fierce when I wanted to give up. You made me believe that the future could be better than the past. That's a lot of pressure, Serena observed. Maya laughed, a real laugh, warm and free. It's not pressure, sweetheart. It's love. And love doesn't feel like pressure when it's real. It feels like wings. The children considered this. I want wings, Noah announced. Me too, Elijah agreed. Wings aren't scientifically possible for humans, Serena pointed out. Not those kind of wings. Maya pulled them all close. The kind that live inside you. The kind that lift you up when everything else is pulling you down. That's what love gives you. That's what family gives you. Do we give you wings, Mommy? Noah asked. Maya looked at her 3 children, her heart, her future, her reason for everything she had done and everything she would do. Yes, she said. You give me wings every single day. The party that afternoon was chaos in the best possible way. 50 children ran through the gardens of the Ashford estate, fueled by sugar and excitement. There were games and prizes and 2 cakes, the unicorn's horn finally secured with emergency buttercream. There were presents piled higher than the children themselves, though Maya knew from experience that Noah would play with the boxes. Elijah would read the instruction manuals, and Serena would organize everything into categories before allowing anyone to touch anything. Maya stood on the terrace watching the madness unfold, feeling something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Peace. Not the absence of conflict, but something deeper. The knowledge that she had fought her battles and won. The certainty that her children were safe, loved, protected. The understanding that whatever came next, she was ready for it. Harold appeared beside her with 2 glasses of champagne. To victory, he said, handing her one. Maya accepted it, but didn't drink immediately. To survival, she countered. Victory sounds too simple for what this was. Then to survival, and to the future. They clinked glasses. What will you do now? Harold asked. The company is stable. Your enemies are defeated. The children are thriving. You've accomplished everything you set out to accomplish. I don't know, Maya admitted. 5 years ago, all I could think about was surviving the next day, the next week, the next challenge. I never planned for what would happen after. Perhaps that's the next adventure, figuring out who Maya Ashford is when she's not fighting for her life. Maya considered this. Maybe, she said. Or maybe I'll find new battles to fight. There's still so much wrong with the world, so many people like me trapped in bad situations believing they have no power to change their lives. The foundation work. It's a start. But I keep thinking, What if I had known when Marcus threw those papers on my body that there was someone out there who believed in me? What if I had known I wasn't alone? Would it have changed anything? You had Theodore, even if you didn't know it. Exactly. Theodore was watching over me, preparing to help, waiting for the right moment. But I didn't know. I thought I was completely alone. Maya watched her children playing, laughing, living. I want to be that person for someone else. The one who's watching, preparing, ready to help when the moment comes. That sounds like a worthy purpose. It sounds like a beginning. Maya smiled, which is funny because for so long all I could think about were endings. Ending my marriage. Ending Marcus's power. Ending the threat to my children. But endings are just beginnings in disguise, aren't they? Theodore would have said something like that. I think I finally understand why he did what he did. Why he watched me for so long, why he left me everything. It wasn't just about money or power or revenge, it was about potential. He saw someone who could become something extraordinary if given the chance, and he wanted to be the one who gave that chance. You were extraordinary long before Theodore's inheritance, Harold said quietly. The money just gave you tools. The rest, the courage, the strategy, the determination that was always you. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. Thank you, Harold, for everything. It's been my honor, truly. A shriek of laughter drew their attention. Noah had somehow ended up covered in cake frosting, and Elijah was attempting to document the situation with a disposable camera. Serena stood nearby, shaking her head in sisterly disappointment. I should go rescue the birthday boy, Maya said, before he gives himself a sugar coma. Of course. I'll handle the cleanup. Maya set down her champagne and walked toward her children. The sun was setting over the estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and purple. The party was winding down, the other children being collected by their parents, the caterers beginning to pack up. But Maya's children were still running, still laughing, still burning with the boundless energy of 5-year-olds who had been given everything they wanted for one perfect day. Maya caught Noah as he ran past, swinging him into her arms despite his frosting-covered protests. Mommy, put me down. Never. You're stuck with me forever. Forever is a long time, Elijah observed, appearing at her side. Not long enough, Maya said, pulling him into the hug as well. Serena approached more cautiously, mindful of her clean dress. If I hug you, I'll get frosting on me. That's a risk I'm willing to take. Serena sighed dramatically, but allowed herself to be pulled into the family embrace. The four of them stood there as the sun set, mother and children, survivor, and future, the living proof that endings could become beginnings. I love you, Maya said. All three of you, more than any empire, more than any fortune, more than anything in this world. We love you too, Mommy, Noah said. Even when you make us eat vegetables, Elijah added. Even then. Serena agreed. Maya held them closer, breathing in the scent of sugar and sunshine and childhood. She thought about the woman she had been 5 years ago, broken, bleeding, believing her life was over. She thought about the divorce papers on her legs, the cruelty in Marcus's voice, the despair that had threatened to swallow her whole. That woman was gone now, transformed into something stronger, something fiercer, something that could not be broken or dismissed or thrown away. But she was also still there somewhere deep inside the part of Maya that still believed in love and second chances, in the possibility of happy endings. Both women had survived. Both women had won. And both women were finally completely at peace. Maya released her children and took each of them by the hand. Come on, she said. Let's go home. They walked together toward the house as the last light faded from the sky, mother and children, family, and future victorious and whole. Behind them, the party decorations fluttered in the evening breeze. The empty chairs and scattered plates would be cleaned up tomorrow. The leftover cake would be eaten for breakfast despite Maya's half-hearted objections. But tonight, there was only this moment, warm hands in hers, small voices chattering about presents and games, and whether they could have a pony next year. Maya smiled and listened and held on tight. She had fought for this. She had sacrificed for this. She had become someone new for this. And it was worth every battle, every tear, every sleepless night. Because Maya Ashford was no longer a victim, no longer a placeholder, no longer a woman who could be thrown away. She was a mother. She was a survivor. She was a force that could not be stopped. And she was finally, after everything, home.